Before we introduce you this week's guest, I'd like to read a review. This one is from Wendy Kim. Kimchi is an incredible stand for empowering and elevating Asian women. There have been very few avenues for Asian women to be heard, even though they have a very powerful message. Her interviews are thought-provoking, empathetic, and authentic. Thank you, Wendy Kim, for your acknowledgement. With your and other Asian women's help, we can make a bigger impact to our generation and future generations of Asian Americans. Please help us spread the message by keep listening and sharing this podcast. And now I have a new tool that I want to share with you. Using your cell phone, text these 4 letters, AWOP, to the number 64600. Again, text AWOP to the number 64600. You will get a link to my virtual business card brought to you by EasyCard. With that link, you have access to all podcast episodes. You can search by the guest name, by their ethnicity, or by the keyword from the episode's title. Check it out. It's really cool. Now, let's get started. A motivational speaker, a chief the impossible business consultant, a Guinness record holder, Jessica Cox is recognized internationally as an inspirational keynote speaker. Born without arms, Jessica lives a normal life using her feet as others use their hands. She flies airplanes, drives cars, earned a black belt in taekwondo. Jessica has a bachelor degree in psychology from the University of Arizona. She has now traveled to 20 countries, 6 continents, sharing her inspirational message. Today, on the Asian Women of Power podcast, she is going to share her message and insight about living and achieving the impossible. Please help me welcome Jessica Cox.
Thank you. Glad to be on the show.
You are welcome. It's my pleasure to have you here. So Jessica, what is your childhood like growing up in Arizona?
I was born in a small town, Sierra Vista, Arizona, where there weren't many people in the city, but it was great to grow up in a small town. I was born without both of my arms, and my parents initially were very shocked at the news that I was going to have to live my life without arms. They didn't know what kind of future was in store for me, but they really were phenomenal parents for me. They laid a foundation and a belief system that I could do anything I wanted to do if I just kept persisting and I didn't give up. So my mother taught me how to be a very hard worker. And my dad taught me that I'm not a victim of a disability or a handicap, that I happen to be different. But that's my life, and I will be able to live my life with what I have. And I did. I went to a regular school. I grew up going to different activities, from swim lessons to dance lessons to everything that children would do growing up. I was never held back.
Wow, that's amazing. So your parents did not treat you differently from they treat your siblings?
I know it sounds very hard to believe that my parents didn't treat me differently from the rest of my family, from my brother or my sister, but they really just instilled in me that I could do anything. I could go on to college, I could do whatever I wanted to do, I could have a career, I could be a mother if I so choose to, and they didn't let me see limitations in my life. I was very blessed to have them.
So who taught you to use your foot as your hands?
It sounds very strange, but I actually learned to use my feet almost in a natural way. My mother was told by a doctor that I would eventually learn to use my feet and hands, and he had that she would hand me toys to my feet. So my mom did that when I was even a toddler or sitting in the crib. She would hand over the toys to me and I would grab them with my toes. And those became my fingers and my feet became my hands because I didn't have the hands to begin with, but my feet were always there to substitute the hands.
Hmm. Did all the toes growing longer to adapt to the grasping?
I have asked a podiatrist once why it is that I'm able to use my feet like hands. And he said that this is an atavistic trait, meaning something that we all have in us. Our ancestors at one point used their feet more than we use them now. So this is something that's built within us. And using my feet like hands, which he actually wanted to take a picture of my foot because he said, your foot looks more hand-like than the rest of my patients. Your foot is wider for one. The gap between the big toe and second toe is wider, so I can grip more than the average foot. My toes are longer, and the arch of my foot is it's a pretty high arch so that I can hold things on the sole of my foot if I have to.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing how our bodies can adapt to our needs. And because my feet had a lot more work to do than the average person, they tended to kind of shape in a way that allowed me to function and use my feet as hands.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the bottom, they look the same as anyone's foot. They don't look any different, but the way I'm able to stretch my toes out wider is probably an adaptation that my feet have allowed me to be able to stretch my toes out to grab things and have a very powerful grip. If you test me on my toes, I have a very strong pinch
Yeah.
with my big toe and second toe.
I know, I know. I see the piano in the back. You are playing piano too, right?
Yes, I do play a couple tunes on the piano.
Wow, amazing. Because I think with the finger, I don't play piano, but I used to learn it when I was younger, and I think the pinky is the weakest one. So you probably can handle it, right? Using your pinky to play.
In the same way that your pinky is the weakest, my pinky toe is also the weakest as far as movement. So when I'm playing the piano keys, I actually use some toes in a different way. Like my most powerful toes are the big toe and second toe. So those are most of the time I'm using my big toe and second toe on the keys. Or if I'll use the edge of the side of my pinky toe if I need to.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So in your bio, your dad said he never shed a tear about your condition. Did you know the reason he said that?
My dad was the strong one when it came to the news of my birth because my mother, any mother would be devastated if your child is born with a disability, especially if it wasn't expected. And that was probably the hardest part is my parents had no idea. They thought I was a normal pregnancy. I would come out like my brother with all four limbs and no challenges. And the sonograms that were done during the pregnancy showed that I was going to be a normal baby. So it was a difficult time for them to find out that my life would be very different from someone else. And for my dad, he was able to stay strong through it. And he said, I never once shed a tear about your birth condition. I never saw you as a victim. And therefore, because he didn't see me as a victim, I didn't have that choice growing up. I was just a little different than everyone else.
So what did he believe about life and karma?
My father believed that everyone happens to be different and that God allowed this to happen maybe for a reason. And perhaps my mother would say there's a great plan for you if you just stay strong and don't give up and wait and you will see. And sure enough, it has been a wonderful example to so many other people, and has turned into something that is a true blessing.
Do you believe in karma?
I personally have referenced that karma and in a couple occasions, but I didn't necessarily believe it was my situation was as a result of karma. I think it was. I don't believe my parents referred to that either, um, but I'm sure it was something that crossed their mind. Um, but for them, it was some fluke thing that happened, and they moved forward in their life in the same way that anyone who faces a challenge, you have to just keep moving forward one day at a time, one step at a time, one challenge at a time.
Yeah, that's a very good mindset, right? To just deal with what you are given.
Yes,
Yes, and not
yes.
blaming. Say, oh, must be my bad karma in the previous life, and now it show up, right? Yeah. So, who are your role models, Jessica?
I have been blessed with wonderful people in my life who have been role models to me. The women in my life are strong women. And I mean, I name my mom and my aunt. I name another mentor of mine who is a woman who lost her arms at an early age. She was only 3 years old,
Wow.
but she was about 7 years older than me. And she showed me that she lived her life as a single mom, taking care of her babies by herself. And if she could do that, then I could do anything. So she was a role model to me because she figured out things without arms, and she taught me a couple things that I needed to learn.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's great that you have that models and supports. Strong
Ye-
women, right?
Yes, I needed that for sure.
Yeah, all of us need that. We need a strong example to show us the way, right? Just like you are an example, a model for a lot of women out there.
I only hope to be. Yes.
You are. What were your biggest challenges that you overcame before you were 20 years old?
The biggest challenges that I had to overcome were even taking care of my most basic needs. How to get dressed without arms and hands. That was a challenge, how to be independent. And we found a way in which I could be independent by using tools that I could use in my life so that I could eventually move out and live on my own. And I did in college. At the age of 18, I moved out of my parents' house and lived in the dormitories at college all by myself without any special help. And then later on, moved into my own apartment and learned to take care of all of my needs, my personal needs, to take care of feeding myself, how to live life without arms and be independent. And I was able to do that through the support, of course, of many, and by not giving up and figuring out a way to accomplish independence.
Wow. What about after 20 years old? What were your challenge?
After 20 years old, I think at that point I had achieved independence, living on my own. But after 20 years old was figuring out what career would I pursue so that I could be financially independent. And that, of course, was a challenge. I had to get my degree first, which I did at the age of 21. I earned a Bachelor of Science in Psychology with a minor in communication. And after I had my education, it was now trying to figure out what career did I want to pursue so that I could be able to earn a living, and decided to become a businesswoman and became the president and founder of my own business. And that's what allowed me to take off in a way that is now pretty phenomenal, because I've had the opportunity to speak as a businesswoman in 24 countries around the world.
Oh, wow, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome. So, did who inspired you to get into psychology?
My interest in psychology was probably from my dad, because he mentioned it as we were growing up. And originally I wanted to pursue medical school, so I went to college with the intent of becoming a doctor. I studied physiological sciences for the first 2 years of college, and then I said, I actually enjoy psychology more than some of the science classes that I was taking. And so then went into psychology as a junior in college, changed my major, and then decided to graduate with my degree in psychology.
To understand the reason why people do certain things, right? About mindset, right?
I believe so much in the power of mindset. So to be able to study that in psychology and really now as a speaker empower people to believe that the body can do just about anything. It's the mind that takes convincing.
That's right.
Famous quote.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard because we don't see it, right? We don't see face to face with the mind, right? So it's really hard to confronting it. Yeah. Was your goal to achieve Guinness record, or you just wanted to do something to prove that you can do it?
I have always wanted to prove, if you can imagine living a life without arms and hands, it's a constant voice that you hear from other people. You don't have arms, you cannot do it. So deep down inside, I sure had a burning drive to prove that I can do anything, even if it meant flying an airplane, what people would think is impossible. So that was one of the driving forces for me, was to be able to show that I can do this. And it was also my greatest fear to fly in an airplane. As a speaker, I always tell people, don't let fear stand in the way of any opportunity. And I thought, why not be the example to that by pursuing the impossible?
Yeah, so does that mean that now you're not afraid of height anymore?
I was always afraid of losing contact with the ground. And
Oh.
now I have to say, after becoming a pilot, it does really help you. It helps you overcome your fear, yes.
Uh-huh. Which one is harder to deal with, critic or disappointment?
Such a wonderful question about what is more difficult, a critic or being, do you mean being disappointed when you were not able to do something? I think that internally it ultimately has a bigger impact on your life, because it's up to you and how you look at something. So you can have as many critics in your life, people telling you can't, people judging you or making you feel less than. But ultimately, it'll be up to the individual how they respond to that and take that. So I think what's more challenging is probably dealing with those internal challenges of those questions of disappointment or the questions of feeling enough. Those are more difficult for an individual, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it's harder to deal with the critic or disappointment from yourself or from others?
I think disappointment from the individual is always more challenging. For myself, it's always that if I have disappointment, it is more challenging, I think, than dealing with a critic. Yes.
So as of now, as of today, is there anything you are not able to do it physically?
I actually think about that, and there is only probably one thing that I'm still challenged at physically, and that's tying my hair in a ponytail. Because if you can only imagine, having to put your feet behind your head is a task in itself. But having to put a rubber band around the hair, I still am struggling and figuring out a way to tie my hair back on my own, keeping it brushed, washing my hair, brushing my hair, curling my hair, blow drying my hair. It's okay, I can do that with my feet. But when it comes to tying it back, it's still a physical challenge.
Mm. You can wear a bra, right? You can tie your bra, or you have to
Yes,
use
yeah,
the
I
only the
actually
front.
fasten the bra first. I
Oh, okay.
fasten the bra before I put it on, and
Okay.
I'm able to pull it down with my feet.
Okay. This is for women only.
Yes, it is a question, though. It's a common question. I just spoke on Saturday, and one of the young girls asked, "How do you put on a bra?" So it's a common question.
Uh-huh. So, how did you meet your husband?
I met my husband Patrick through practicing taekwondo. He at the time was a 4th-degree black belt in taekwondo, and I was a 1st-degree black belt. We decided to hang out outside of our taekwondo school, and that's when we started dating. But the reason we met is because I had a friend, a mutual friend, who was teaching taekwondo, and I walked into a taekwondo school, and there he was. And that was the start of how we met. And then later started dating and then deciding to get married. And now we've been married for 7 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
He's he's your right hand for your business, right?
Yes, yes. He's a right-hand man for me.
Right hand man. Yes, I know.
Right-hand man.
You're so dedicated. Yes, that's awesome. I'm happy for both of you.
Thank you.
So do you plan to have a child someday?
I think I have always wanted to be a mom. I think the time will have to be right when I decide to have a child. I'm, of course, very dedicated to my profession, to my vocation, and my choice of becoming a speaker, to pursue being on stage, traveling the world. And when you become a mother, there will have to be more challenges that will be easier to take if I'm home more often. So right now, as a speaker, it's not the right time to have a child, but I think when the time is right, I would love to be a mother.
Yeah, that's wonderful intention and plan.
Yes.
So what is your mission and vision in life?
I think about my mission and vision in life, and it has definitely shifted throughout the years. It's ever evolving. It's something that constantly changes and will continue to change as I get older because there are always new goals in my life. I always felt like I wanted to share my voice, and a voice that I wanted to tell the world, and it turned into a career as a speaker. And it has brought me to places that I would have never imagined traveling to share that message, that disability does not mean inability, and to educate, to advocate, and to be a positive voice and a light to give hope to many people. And I think ultimately, I think it falls under that same mission and vision of just being an inspiration and hope and a light to others.
What are the top 3 tips that you want Asian women to know so that they can live life powerfully regardless of their circumstances?
The first thing I do want Asian women to know is the importance of acceptance and the importance of embracing whatever it is that you have in life. Everyone has something that they're challenged with, some obstacle or some hurdle. But if you can embrace that challenge and that obstacle, you will be so surprised at how it will help you to grow in a phenomenal way and in a way that helps other people, in a way that helps you to live a full life. So the first and foremost is having the acceptance of whatever it is that someone is faced with. The second one is just to never give up, because I think it is so easy to give up because there's so many obstacles. Something may seem very intimidating. Just don't ever give up. Just keep fighting. You will be able to stretch yourself in a way as long as you never give up. You'll be surprised at how many doors will open by not giving up. And that's an important message. And my third is to be fearless, because being fearless is what will transform your life. Everyone has some kind of fear that stands in the way of achieving greatness, of achieving wonderful things. And if we can just not let fear stand in the way of an opportunity. I love it. The famous quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, identify your greatest fear and walk directly at it. And it's so important for us to be fearless individuals and to be strong women, yes.
So what is your greatest fear? What was your greatest fear?
What was my greatest fear? One of my greatest fears was flying in an airplane because I didn't know how an airplane could be in the sky, and losing contact with the ground was always terrifying. Um, and for me, it was just to be able to overcome that is what I wanted to do. And I did, and it really empowered me to be able to do something despite being afraid of it. And that's true for anyone. If you can just see something that you're afraid of it and do something a little bit every day to get over that fear, it'll transform your life.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to be able to certify to fly the airplane?
It took me 3 years, 3 airplanes, 3 different flight instructors, numerous hours of study, flight training in Florida, in California, and then back in my home state of Arizona, numerous hours to finally become a certified pilot and accomplish what some people may have thought was impossible. And it has been a wonderful, empowering experience to fly an airplane. Every time I fly around and I land, and I have a huge smile on my face, knowing that I was able to do that by myself without any help. It is the greatest form of independence and freedom.
Mm-hmm. Does the airplane have to be like specialized or special equipped so that you can maneuver it with your feet?
The airplane does not have to be specially modified. The airplane is a standard airplane. I had to learn how to adapt with my feet to use on the controls without any special devices or special equipment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the airplane basically just most people would use their arms or hands, right? They don't use the pedal. They don't use the feet for the pedal or anything, right? It's just the hand control, right? Is that?
Most people would use their hands, and some airplanes require pedals.
Oh, okay.
So some airplanes require your feet on the pedals and your hands on the controls. So for me, the airplane I fly was built in the 1940s. So it's a very old airplane, but is the only airplane built without rudder pedals. So therefore, there are 2 less controls in the average airplane. So I have my right foot on the yoke and my left foot on the throttle, which means I don't have to have 2 more limbs on pedals. I just have my feet on the controls, and then if I need to brake, there's a single foot brake. And I just bring my left foot off the throttle and step on the single foot brake.
Whoa. So that's awesome. Don't mess with Jessica, right? Don't ever mess with her.
There's a lot going on, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Airplane is a very busy place, especially when you're landing the airplane.
Mm.
It's a challenge. It took me many hours to finally figure out how to do that with my feet in a safe manner.
Mm-hmm. Why did it take you 3 airplanes and 3 teachers?
It took 3 airplanes because of the specific requirements that I needed on the airplane. So not only did I need that special model airplane, the one built in the 1940s called the Air Coupe airplane, but also the controls had to be low enough on the control panel. And some control panels have higher controls, so it makes it more challenging. It means reaching my foot higher up.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to find the right airplane that helped me become a safe pilot. And so that's why it took 3 airplanes and 3 different flight instructors figuring out the logistics of how to make this work, all the demands that is required of a pilot.
Oh. So were the instructor were they very nervous? Were they nervous when they're teaching you?
I'm sure they were nervous teaching me, but for the most part, they were pretty calm, and they treated me like they would any other student pilot.
Wow.
I would say. I mean, until it came time to solo the airplane by myself, it was the same kind of process that any pilot instructor would go through. Is they made sure that if the student worked diligently, and studied hard, then they would endorse them to be a safe pilot.
Mm-hmm. So what's next project? What's your next project?
My next project is working on my foundation to help more people with disabilities be empowered in the same way that I have been so blessed with so many opportunities. And I have really focused in a lot of my time and energy to helping people with disabilities, and through this foundation called Right Footed Foundation International. And we're always, of course, looking for support to help many people with disabilities. I have a special place in my heart for children with disabilities, children who have limb loss, who have lost limbs due to accidents or illnesses, children who were born without their limbs as well, which is 1 in 10,000 children will be born missing a limb, and to be able to give them the opportunities that I've been given, and to provide an ongoing support system, a mentoring relationship, and support for them to become successful.
So this foundation, is that mostly based in United States, or is it a worldwide foundation?
The foundation, it's called Right Footed Foundation International, so it's not limited to the United States. We're doing outreach in other countries as well.
That's a wonderful cause.
Yes, it's been wonderful. It's been really been a blessing.
Yeah. And I'm so proud of you, Jessica, for doing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So what's the best way to reach you and to learn more about you?
Please go to my website, which is jessicacox.com. And you can find me there, or you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, social media. But you can always email me through my website, jessicacox.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the Asian Women of Power podcast. You are an example of someone who lives life loud. Now, for you, our listener and viewers, I hope you feel inspired and motivated by Jessica's story. Share with us how this interview impacts you and change your view about life. If you want to get the latest update about my podcast or about my events, text AWOP to the number 64600. Until next time, live life loud. Goodbye.